Hello everyone, so today's our first class of the first module, the TOEFL introduction module. And in this module, we'll be covering some aspects of the test. So the first one is the parts of the tests in general. Then we'll be talking about where the TOEFL test is accepted, which universities, which countries, how you can use this test. Then we'll be talking about the details of each part. So we'll be talking about the reading, the listening, speaking, and writing in detail. Finally, we'll be talking about the key points about the TOEFL, and in the end, I will talk about an overall preparation. What I need you to know in this module is that it's just like what you have to know to understand the test. In the other modules, we'll go deep down in the practice and the strategies, okay? This is the introduction. So now let's talk about the test, the 4 parts of the test. Lucky you guys, there is no grammar part, so you can be, relieved. The first part of the test is the reading, where you will be reading academic texts in English and answering questions about those texts. Then the second one is the listening, where you listen to conversations and lectures in English. Then we'll have the speaking, where you speak into a microphone about academic topics in English. And finally, we'll have a writing, where you have to write essays in academic and formal English. Remember, I told you you have to be relaxed because there's no grammar part? Don't be mistaken, they will be testing your grammar and vocabulary, especially in the speaking and writing part. So now we will talk about where the TOEFL is accepted. The TOEFL test is an American test. It was developed in the United States. However, it is accepted globally, which means that it's going to be very difficult to find a country that does not accept the TOEFL test for international programs. So the first thing you have to know is that the TOEFL is an academic test, which means that you will use it for you to enter in universities abroad, for you to do your master's program, your MBA, LLM, your exchange program, or a PhD even. It is accepted all over the US, so most of, like all of the American universities will accept this test. And there are some universities that only accept this test. So if you're applying to the US, please guys, pay attention and check if the university only accepts this test, okay? So just to give you an example, Yale Law School, if you want to go to Yale Law School to do your LLM, they only accept the TOEFL test. Okay. However, suppose you want to study in another country, such as Australia, South Africa, or even China in an international program. Most universities will accept this test as well. Even here in Brazil, if you want to do a program, let's say at FGV here in São Paulo, they will accept the TOEFL as the proof of proficiency in English. Okay? All right. So now we'll be talking about each part in a little bit more of a detail. Remember, the rest of the course and the other modules will have a module for reading, a module for listening, and so on and so forth. Now it's just for you to have an idea of each part, an overall view of each part. So let's start off with reading. The reading part is an interpretation of text. So you will have 2 readings and 10 questions per reading. I want to highlight this here because there was a change in TOEFL in 2024. And in the past, you would have more readings, okay, guys? So if you're using old materials, have in mind that the TOEFL is changed 2 years ago. And we'll have 2 passages and 10 questions per passage. For each passage, you have 17 minutes to read the passage and answer to the questions. All right? In this course, we will be talking about each type of question, how to approach the reading part in detail in our next module. What I want you to have in mind is that it will take 35 minutes in total, and that's it. Not 1 minute more than that. Okay? All right, let's move on. Now let's talk about the listening. The listening is a little bit counterintuitive, and you understand why. Let's start talking a little bit about the material. What will you be listening to? Well, you'll be listening to lectures in English about academic materials regarding a variety of topics such as astronomy, biology, history. So it's a lecture. And then you have questions about this lecture. However, there is another type that I think we're not so used to, which are conversations about academic situations. So a conversation on campus, for example. You will have 3 lectures and 2 conversations, 6 questions per lecture and 2 questions per conversation. In total, you will have 28 questions and you have to do everything in 36 minutes. So now I want you to pay attention to something here. In the listening part, you will listen only one time, okay? Sometimes we are used to listen 2 times, you know. In the TOEFL, you will listen only one time and you don't have access to the question. Okay, so you listen. While you listen, you will be taking notes. And then once this is finished, you will be able to go to the questions. So that's the order. You listen. While you listen, you take notes. Then you will approach the questions. I think that's kind of counterintuitive because in most of our English classes, in most of the tests we take, we have access to the questions and we listen to it twice. So pay attention to that. I will be here reinforcing this in the module of the listening. We will learn how to take notes in notes workshop. Okay, we will learn each type of questions, no worries. But I just wanted to highlight here in the beginning that the listening is a little bit more different than we are used to. So now let's move on to the speaking part, which is also different, let's say. Okay, the speaking is divided into 4 tasks and it will take only 60 minutes. So it's not a monster. Okay, guys, lots of students are afraid of the speaking, especially because you have to be talking to a microphone. But don't you worry, we'll be learning here, you'll be practicing a lot, and it will become second nature for you. Okay, so let's check this table here, and I want to highlight some things here for you to understand how the speaking is organized. So here in the speaking, I want to show a difference here. We have the first task, which is the independent task, okay? The independent task is a little bit different than the other ones here, okay? In the independent task, you will be asked to answer a question about a choice related to a daily situation, okay? So let's say they will ask you, what do you prefer? A multiple choice test or an essay test? So you have to choose, always choose, okay? Choose one thing. Let's say, I prefer multiple choice. And you have to explain why, okay? And you can give examples about yourself, and you can give other examples why you prefer this than that, okay? And you will have 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to speak. So I like to compare to sending audio memos via WhatsApp. You know, WhatsApp messages when we send messages. It's very similar because you are recording yourself in a short period of time. This preparation time is great for you to kind of like write down some ideas about how you will develop your answer. Now let's talk about the other three types here, the other three tasks, which are the integrated tasks. They are a little bit they are similar among the three of them, but they are very different from the first one, the independent speaking. So in this one, there's something that I ask my students to repeat, so you repeat after me. In the integrated, no opinion. Okay, you are not supposed to give your opinion in this one here. You are supposed to describe what you read and what you heard. Okay, so in the integrated, no opinion. Very important. If you give your opinion, you will lose points here. Okay. All right, so let's go one by one. Let's start with task 2. It is called integrated because you will be integrating more than one skill. So you will integrate, for example, in task 2, a reading, a listening, and a speaking. So you will read a notice from the university, then you will listen to a conversation about this university notice, and you have to talk. You have to describe the speaker's opinion in this conversation. Okay? So basically, here you will have a notice, let's say, about changes in the library. And then you have two students talking about those changes, and they are either going to agree or disagree with this. And you'll be asked to describe it. This one, you have a little bit more time to prepare and to speak because you have a material to talk about. So you'll have 30 seconds of preparation and 60 seconds to speak. Task 3, it's very similar. However, this one we'll be talking about a content, a subject related to, as I said in the listening, the speaking is going to be similar as well, about biology, about architecture. Mine was about architecture. So you will read an academic text about a topic, and then you will listen to a lecture regarding the same topic, and you have to describe it. So I will give you an example of my TOEFL test, the last one I took. It was about architecture. So they're talking about how the architecture changes cities and how each city has a different type of architecture. And in the lecture, the professor brought up the example of New York City, the way that the architecture gave like a mood to the city, which is nice because I moved to New York right after this test. So for me, it was very cool that this was the topic. And then I just had to speak about it. You know, I had to describe the example given by the professor and what the text was all about. Remember, guys, no opinions. You're not supposed to say, oh, New York's so cool. I would love to live there. No. Okay, don't do that. Here, you will also have 30 seconds to prepare and 60 seconds to speak. The last integrated is the simpler one. Why? Because you only have a lecture. Okay? So, task number 4, you have a lecture about a topic. So let's say about volcanoes, all right? How volcanoes work. And then you have to speak about this lecture. It's this easy. You take notes and you will speak about what you heard. So in this one, you have 20 seconds to prepare, a bit less than the other ones, but it's still 1 minute to speak. In total, this will take about 16 minutes. It is short and it's a matter of preparation, okay? The more you prepare, the more you practice, you can do it. We have a whole module on speaking. We will have a workshop on how to take notes, how to speak. I'll show you here how to speak. So that's it. Now, let's finish each part talking about the writing. All right? You are very lucky. I always tell this to my students that you got like the soft TOEFL, because as I said, the TOEFL has changed, and now the independent writing is a bit less challenging, I would say. You will be less tired in this one. So the same deal here. We have an integrated part and an independent part. Okay. So, and integrated, no opinion. Okay. And integrated, you will always be describing something. It's very similar to the speaking task, the integrated writing. However, here you have to write instead of speak. So, how does it work? You will have an academic text and a lecture, and you have to write about it. Okay, we'll have a class about this, and then I'll show you a text that I wrote for when I was preparing to the TOEFL. We'll have workshops of writing, so all good here. This will take 20 minutes. And now let's talk about what is new. Okay, this is a new task, so if you are using old materials, pay attention to this one, because this one is going to be only in new materials, which is writing for an academic discussion. You will have to defend an opinion about a topic in a paragraph. Only 100 words here, okay? In the integrated task, I forgot to say, you have to write from 125 to 225 words. Usually I tell my students to write a bit more, okay? More than 200 words. In this one, you only have 10 minutes. So you have to write a paragraph, a well-developed paragraph. And as I told you, we'll have a workshop on how to do it, but it's kind of like a short text, okay, to finish the test. And that's how the test is divided. And that's it for today. And I'll see you in the next class.